The story is dedicated to everyone in their 30s, and it begins in the 1998 to 1999 school year, hinting at a potential demise for humanity. A crowd of students gathers around the bulletin board, eagerly checking the first semester midterm exam results for the second graders. Kanu Hajime, a student with curly hair and glasses, boasts to his classmates. He proudly points out that he once again placed second among all the second graders, claiming his brain is simply a cut above everyone else's. Hajime's friends praise him, saying he should be proud, especially since he spends all his time gaming with them. He nonchalantly replies that this is just what happens when he puts in a tiny bit of effort. Meanwhile, another group of girls surrounds Satori Emi, congratulating her for scoring first place yet again. They also recall that she landed first in last year's nationwide mock test. She humbly deflects the praise, saying she just keeps getting lucky. Hajime's friends tell him not to be discouraged, reasoning that he and Satori have different upbringings and brain wiring. Hajime stares intently at Satori, acknowledging her as his rival. Satori lets out a small, almost dismissive heh, seemingly unfazed by the attention or Hajime's intense stare. Annoyed by Satori's effortless success, Hajime mentally calls upon the great king of terror from Nostradamus's prophecy, wishing for her to be the first target of destruction when the apocalypse arrives in July 1999. On his desk is a Magic, the Gathering card. At the turning of the century, Kanu Hajime and Satori Emi, two students bound by rivalry, hold their cards, knowing that both lies and destiny lie ahead of them. The scene shifts to the classroom, where Hajime and his friends are playing Magic, the Gathering. He attacks with his Dothy Horror, Dothy Slayer, and Black Knight cards. Hajime deals a decisive 6 damage to his opponent, who throws his hands up in defeat, dramatically crying out, "No, I'm finished." The scene is set in May 1998. Magic, the Gathering, the first ever trading card game which debuted in 1993, was hugely popular. Hajime laughs maniacally, boasting that no one in the entire school can rival him. Hajime explains his game strategy to his friend, emphasizing the importance of speed. He argues that a fast mono-black deck will overwhelm an opponent before they can summon large, costly creatures, unlike a mono-white deck. He also notes that red decks have more overall firepower. Hajime, along with his friend Kurushima, discusses movies. Hajime asks what the coolest Tommy Lee Jones movie is and to what color the organization from Men in Black owes its style. His friend hesitantly answers Black Moon Rising, and then correctly black. Hajime passionately declares that black has been a man's color since time immemorial. The narration notes that the word chinibyu had not yet been coined to describe middle school second years of his type. Suddenly, Satori appears behind Hajime and firmly tells him he's not allowed to bring anything unrelated to studying to school. Hajime protests that they aren't bothering her, while his friend apologizes to Satori. She retorts that the ruckus is bothering her plenty and questions why he doesn't have any friends in his own class. Infuriated, Hajime tells Satori not to get cocky just because her grades happen to be slightly better than his. Hajime dramatically proclaims that his grades only reflect 60 to 70% of his true studying power, attributing his lower score to being absorbed in a mission of beating Xenogears. The other girls in the class find him creepy and call him a loser. As Hajime storms out of the classroom, his friend calls after him, reminding him about his forgotten cards. Hajime glares back, vowing Satori will remember this. He reflects that his connection with her started back in elementary school. The scene flashes back to their elementary school days. Satori, the new transfer kid in Class 3, is on stage receiving an award for getting perfect grades. In the audience, Hajime looks on in disbelief, thinking he was a shoo-in for that award and realizing the world is bigger than he thought. Later, the young Hajime approaches Satori in the hallway. He introduces himself as Kanu Hajime and declares that he officially sees her as his rival. The young Satori looks at him with a deadpan expression, questioning his declaration of rival and asking how old he is. Satori dismisses his challenge, telling him to go play make-believe without her, leaving a young Hajime stunned but resolute in his goal to surpass her. Back in the present day, that determination hasn't faded. As he and his friend Kurushima ride their bikes, Kurushima suggests that as the top 2 in their grade, they should try to get along. Hajime vehemently rejects the idea, vowing that his battle against her is merely the initiation of his military rule's inexorable victory. Hajime dramatically declares that only once he has defeated her will his grand saga commence. His friend Kurushima deadpants, "Sure, your saga." As they walk through a shopping district, Kurushima hopes the Earth will still be around for the new millennium sale. Hajime recalls the prophecy that the Great King of Terror will descend in the 7th month of 1999. Kurushima mentions it's the same prophecy he's heard on TV since he was a kid. Hajime excitedly agrees, saying that if the prophecy is true, the world will end before they even reach adulthood, which he thinks is awesome. Hajime imagines the end of the world will be like the magic card's Pestilence, or Armageddon. Seizing the opportunity, Kurushima casually mentions that there's a specialty trading card game shop over in the next town, Tamanari. Hajime is immediately intrigued. Kurushima explains that the shop sells single cards and even has old expansions on sale, but it's about an hour away by bike. Hajime's mind races. He realizes that if he can get his hands on powerful cards that aren't available in his town, his place as the top dog among his friends will be solidified. He immediately asks Kurushima for the shop's location. Determined, Hajime begins humming the Dun Dun Dunna intro from an epic theme, ready to embark on his quest. Having changed into his casual clothes, a plaid shirt, a black t-shirt, a baseball cap, and a messenger bag, Hajime strikes a pose, still humming his theme song. As he rides his bike across a bridge, the narration notes that Hajime is singing the opening theme of Mobile Suit Gundam. Jazz Y. Bye! After a long ride, Hajime finally arrives in the unfamiliar town. With a hand-drawn map, he navigates the streets, searching for the specialty card shop. He arrives at his destination, a place called Café Shibuyama. He's confused, as it looks like an ordinary cafe, not the card shop he spent an hour and a half cycling to find. Just as he's about to despair, he spots a sign outside. It's a DCI-recognized shop that sells trading card singles. He realizes the card shop must be operating out of what used to be just a cafe. Hajime opens the door and steps inside, only to be greeted by the clatter of a busy room. The place is filled with patrons, all intensely focused on playing card games. He's shocked to see the place is filled with adults. It's the first time he's ever seen grown-ups playing Magic or yelling with such passion during a game. He nervously approaches the man at the counter, who is busy painting a small figurine. Hajime asks if this is where they sell old Magic, the Gathering single cards. The shop owner smiles and confirms that all the cards are in the showcases, telling Hajime to just let him know if there are any he'd like to see. Hajime looks over at the glass cases. Hajime is completely starstruck. He sees boxes of old expansions like Ice Age and Alliances, sets he's only ever read about in RPG magazines. He gazes in awe at the binders full of single cards for sale. As he's checking the price of a cursed scroll card and regretting giving his away to Kurushima, a commotion from across the room catches his attention. A crowd has gathered around one table, buzzing with excitement. They're watching a player who is on an incredible undefeated streak. This is their 15th straight win. The legendary player, holding a hand of Magic cards, looks up with a confident smile and asks, "All right, who's next? Who wants to be my opponent?" It's Saatari Emi. Hajime is completely dumbfounded, staring in disbelief. He can't believe his eyes. Saatari? What's she doing in a place like this? Hajime is stunned that Saatari, who gives him so much grief for his hobbies at school, plays MTG herself. A spectator warns him not to waste the effort, but Hajime sees a golden opportunity and steps forward to accept her challenge. Saatari greets him, noting they seem to be about the same age, but she doesn't think they've met. In an attempt to be mysterious, Hajime lowers his voice, stating he won't disclose his age. With dramatic flair, Hajime sits down, declaring, "I hereby assume the name of Cloud." The onlookers immediately identify him as a classic middle school second grader with a bad case of chinibyu, as the narration reminds us the term had not yet been coined. With a determined grin, Hajime fans out his cards. He internally vows that this is payback time, a chance to get her back for showing him up on the test. The much-anticipated duel between the two rivals is about to begin. The match begins and Saatari immediately goes on the offensive. She summons a Soltari monk and attacks, drawing first blood. The crowd cheers her on, telling the kid he can do it. Hajime starts to sweat, realizing he's drawn a bad hand. To make matters worse, Saatari is using a mono-white deck. He recalls his friend's warning that for a black deck user like himself, this is the worst possible matchup. After sideboarding, Saatari declares that her deck is his deck's natural predator. She lets him go first, but quickly follows up by summoning a white knight and another Soltari monk, relentlessly attacking him. Hajime groans in frustration as Saatari continues her assault. She plays an enchantment, Imperial Armor, on her avenging angel, making it even more powerful. Saatari orders her angel to attack. Hajime is dealt a massive blow, crying out as if he were physically struck. He collapses to his knees in utter disbelief. Saatari shows no mercy and plays Light of Day, an enchantment that completely incapacitates all of Hajime's black creatures. Crushed by the realization that he's lost not just academically but at magic as well, he whispers, "I lose." In his flustered state after the humiliating defeat, Hajime accidentally knocks his die off the table. As he scrambles to pick it up, Saatari asks what he's doing. As they both reach for the fallen die, their hands touch. They both freeze, staring at each other in surprise at the sudden closeness. The moment of contact breaks the illusion. Saatari, blushing furiously, finally recognizes him, stammering "Ka. Kanu?" Hajime, equally flustered, can only let out a nervous laugh. Overcome with embarrassment, Saatari abruptly flees the scene. Hajime, still flustered, tries to call after her, but she's already gone. The crowd is left confused, wondering what happened to Emi, who even left her cards behind. Hajime stands alone, his heart pounding in his chest as he tries to process what just happened. The scene is set at a high school on a Monday during noon recess. An unknown person is looking for someone named Saatari. Kanu Hajime, a student with messy hair and glasses, barges into a classroom asking for Saatari. The other students wonder who he's asking for, and his friend calls out his name in surprise. Hajime finally finds Saatari Emi, who glares at him with intense fury. He shyly holds out a set of cards to her, blushing as the students around them watch. Saatari angrily asks what he's doing, holding the cards out for everyone to see. He explains he's just returning them because she left them at a store. She takes the cards, checking them with a sigh of relief. Saatari grabs Hajime and fiercely asks if he told anyone that she was at the card store, her expression showing deep concern. She insists that she'll die if anyone finds out. Hajime is flustered and confused. Saatari claims she has a certain status to uphold and shouldn't be associated with people who just play games. Hajime questions why she plays magic in the first place, but she dismisses him. In a flash, her demeanor changes as she sweetly talks to a teacher, showing her two-faced nature. A brief flashback shows Saatari happily playing cards. Back in the present, Hajime watches her walk away, looking disappointed that his chance to talk to her was ruined. Later, in the school library, Hajime is playing magic with his friend Kurushima. He slams his hand on the table in frustration after losing a match. Kurushima asks Hajime why he's suddenly so fired up about creating a strategy against a mono-white deck. Hajime, with a determined look, says there's someone he absolutely has to crush. Kurushima smirks, remembering Hajime's earlier search for Saatari and piecing things together. Hajime vehemently denies any intention of getting along with Saatari. Kurushima points out that they're both great at studying and have been competing since elementary school, suggesting they'd get along well. Kurushima tells a stunned Hajime that he and Saatari are two of a kind, or something to that effect. After looking out the window, Hajime abruptly ends his card game with Kurushima, saying he's going home. He has just spotted Saatari leaving the school. Hajime dramatically leaps out of the library and runs to confront Saatari, stopping her in front of a crowd of students. He declares their battle isn't over and challenges her to continue from where they left off. He makes a bet. If he loses, he'll keep her secret and do whatever she says. The scene shifts to a card shop where a crowd has gathered. Saatari, with a confident and cunning smirk, accepts Hajime's challenge. The duel begins. Hajime and Emi Saatari face each other, both with 20 life points, ready to play. Hajime goes first, playing a swampland card. Emi follows by playing a plains as her land and summoning a blood pet creature. On turn 2, Hajime plays another swamp, summons a Dothi Slayer, and attacks with his blood pet Emi counters by summoning a Soltari monk, which has protection from black, effectively neutralizing his creature. A spectator comments on Hajime's low-cost creature strategy. Emi casts Diabolic Edict, forcing Hajime to sacrifice one of his creatures. Though she takes some damage, dropping to 16 life, she's clearly taking control of the board. Hajime reveals his strategy, playing an enchantment card. Dread of Night, preparing for his next move. The crowd recognizes the card, calling it a dirty move as it weakens all of Emi's white creatures. A flashback reveals Hajime has been thinking about this specific strategy against mono-white decks all week. Hajime plays Stupor, forcing Emi to discard 2 cards. In response, Emi plays her own killer lock piece, Light of Day, which seems like a perfect counter to Hajime's mono-black deck. The crowd thinks Hajime is now locked out of combat. But this was all part of Hajime's elaborate plan. He smirks, realizing he successfully baited her. By forcing her to discard, he made her get rid of 2 copies of Disenchant, leaving her with no way to destroy his enchantments. His strategy is just getting started. Hajime plays the Gloom Enchantment, a strategic move that makes all of Emi's white spells and abilities cost more. A spectator notes that Hajime has shifted from creature combat to a lockdown strategy. A regular at the shop comments that with cards like that in play, Emi will have a hard time. However, he notes that Hajime is still at a disadvantage if the game goes on too long. Emi looks on, her life now at 13. The crowd watches as the tables have turned. Hajime is down to only 6 life, and his creatures are useless against Emi's. However, another spectator shouts that it's not over, as black decks have ways to deal damage outside of combat. In a shocking move, Emi taps all of her swamps, sacrifices her blood pet, and plays Dark Ritual to generate a massive 10 mana. She then unleashes the spell Drain Life. The spell hits Hajime for 8 damage, dropping his life to 5. Emi's life total then goes up by 8 to 14. The crowd is in awe. Hajime realizes with dread that all she needs to do is cast 1 more Drain Life to win the game. Emi looks at Hajime with a smug expression, telling him it's a shame he couldn't follow through with his master plan. Then, Emi plays her final devastating card, raising it into the air and shouting its name. Armageddon. Hajime watches in horror as all his land cards, which he spent so many turns accumulating, are destroyed. Emi destroyed her own lands too, but the damage is done. He realizes the hopelessness of his situation. Without lands, he can't cast spells. Emi still has 2 creatures on the field, and he has no way to stop them. He desperately searches his mind for a card that can save him, but he knows there isn't one. Completely and utterly defeated, Hajime bows his head in shame and concedes the game. He can't believe that in the end, there was nothing he could do to beat her. In a fit of melodrama, Hajime declares his defeat to the world, stating that from tomorrow on, he will resign himself to the humble life of a normal person. To his surprise, Emi extends her hand and says, "Let's shake." It was a good game. She even compliments him, saying he must be pretty smart. Hajime is completely taken aback, blushing and stammering. In that moment, he remembers what his true goal was. He realizes that what he wanted all along wasn't just to beat her, but to become friends with her. He timidly shakes her hand as the crowd around them applauds. Sometime later, the scene shifts to a highway overpass under a cloudy afternoon sky. Hajime is now struggling to pedal his bicycle with Emi riding on the back, panting and complaining about how he got stuck in this situation. Emi cheerfully explains that the next bus wasn't for another hour, so this was the only way. She playfully urges him to pick up the pace before it gets dark, while he mutters that he'd be faster if he didn't have to carry her. Emi overhears his complaint and gives his ear a sharp pinch, making him yelp in pain. After his outburst, Hajime stops pedaling, exhausted. Emi gets off the bike and stands at the railing of the bridge, calling out for him to look at something. They both lean on the railing and watch a magnificent sunset over the river. Hajime, ever the gamer, remarks that the fantastic sunset reminds him of the magic card, Fireball. Emi muses aloud, wondering if the descent of the prophesied Great King of Terror would look like this. Hajime is shocked that she's bringing up the Doomsday Prophecy. Hajime asks incredulously if she actually believes in that silly prophecy about resurrected moa birds annihilating humanity. Emi admits she doesn't really believe it, but thinks it would be interesting. Hajime scoffs, boasting that he'd never let humanity crumble because he's waiting for the new Exodus expansion for Magic and the release of Final Fantasy VIII next year. He proclaims that the world is brimming with things he has yet to experience. Emi laughs, teasing that all he's looking forward to is games and magic. As he speaks, however, a thoughtful and mysterious smile begins to form on her face. They stand together watching the sunset. Emi's thoughtful expression turns into a knowing, mischievous grin as an idea clicks into place. She turns to Hajime and says, "You know, I just remembered." Emi reminds Hajime about the promise he made before their duel. She asks if he remembers saying that if she won, he would do whatever she said. He nervously recalls his vow. Trying to save face, Hajime puffs out his chest and declares that a man never backs down on his word. Seeing this, Emi gets a devious smile and says, "All right then." With a gentle expression, Emi looks at Hajime and asks him to fulfill his promise. "Could you be at my side when the world ends?" Hajime is struck completely dumb, his face turning bright red. Emi holds her serious expression for a moment before she can't hold back a small laugh. She bursts out laughing, shouting "Psych," and teasing him for blushing over a simple joke. A flustered Hajime frantically denies it, claiming he's just moved by the beautiful view. After having her fun, Emi tells Hajime it's time to go and that he can fulfill his promise by taking her the rest of the way home. They get back on the bicycle and ride off. As they're riding, Emi suddenly tells Hajime to hurry up, saying she wants to be back home by 6 o'clock. Hajime can't believe her audacity. He complains about how selfish she is, but she insists that she has something important to do and will never forgive him if he's even a minute late. He wonders what could possibly be so important. Emi reveals her very important appointment. She wants to catch an episode of the anime YT Untroubled Space Tours. Hajime is stunned for a second, before letting out a snort of laughter. He breaks into full-on laughter, telling her she should have just said so sooner. The panel notes that on this day, in May of 1998, their story truly began. As they ride off across the bridge into the city, the chapter concludes with one final thought. Our saga began. The scene opens at Kamikawa City's Tokawaki Junior High School, setting the stage for a story of teenage rivalry and obsession. While other students chat about upcoming TV dramas and share music, a wicked grin spreads across one boy's face, hinting at a much more intense inner world. In the world of a card game, he plays a powerful enchantment, Bad Moon, which boosts all black creatures. His opponent can only watch in horror, realizing the tide has turned against him. With a triumphant smirk, Kanu Hajime unleashes his forces, summoning the Dothy Slayer, Dothy Horror, and a Black Knight to press his attack. The monstrous forms of his summoned creatures lunge forward, a terrifying vanguard ready to overwhelm his opponent. The attack is devastating, dealing a total of 9 damage. His friend slams his cards down in frustration, shouting, "Damn it. Lost again." Hajime erupts in manic laughter, boasting that his victory is proof of his superior intellect. The scene then flashes back, grounding this moment in May of 1998, a time when a certain card game was all the rage among his friends. That game was Magic: The Gathering, the world's first trading card game, which had debuted back in 1992 and captured their imaginations. Hajime mercilessly critiques his friend's deck, calling him a scrub for wanting to use a high-cost card like the Scaled Worm. He preaches his own philosophy. To win, you have to go monocolor. His friend Kurushima, looking thoughtful, asks why Hajime is so fixated on a mono-black deck when mono-red offers more firepower. The narration explains that this was a period in the game's history where weenie decks, which flooded the board with small creatures, reigned supreme. Hajime, with a sly look, poses a question to his friend Kurushima, asking what heroes like Nanami Kyuya and the Men in Black have in common, weaving his game strategy into a web of pop culture references. Kurushima is baffled, asking if he means the color black. Hajime explodes with passion, declaring that black has been a man's color since time immemorial, a classic display of his Chinibu personality before the term was even known. His rant is cut short when a female student with long, dark hair appears behind him. With an annoyed expression, she tells him he's in the way. Recognizing her, the boys apologize to Sadari-san and hastily start packing up their cards. Hajime, however, just stares back at her with a defiant glare. Saatari remains unimpressed, flatly telling Hajime she has no interest in their hyper-strategic game of wits. She reminds them it's against the rules to bring unrelated paraphernalia to school and insults them by saying they're acting like little kids. Hajime tries to argue his case, but Saatari calmly gestures around the classroom, telling him to quit playing the honor student. She points out that he's surrounded by other students' personal belongings. Saatari presses her advantage, noting that this isn't even his class and coldly asking if he has any friends in his own. Infuriated, Hajime declares the debate over and claims victory, even as Sayatari calls him out for proving her point. As his friend tries to calm him down, Hajime insists he has friends. Sayatari smirks, telling him to enjoy acting nonchalant while he can, just as the school bell rings, ending the confrontation. Hajime, refusing to accept defeat, declares that he looks forward to the day the midterm scores are posted, vowing to take first place. Sayatari simply gives a disinterested, "Is that so?" as she looks away. Later, as Hajime and his friends ride their bikes home, they complain about Sayatari. Hajime scoffs at giving her any credit, calling her a maiden covered in steel down to the very soul. One friend suggests he's being too hard on her, admitting she's a top student and good-looking. But Hajime angrily retorts that they just don't understand how messed up she truly is. Hajime reveals the root of his grudge. He was always the #1 student until Sayatari transferred in their 5th year of elementary school. With fiery determination, he declares that she is his fated nemesis, and his saga can only begin once he has vanquished her. As his friends say their goodbyes and start to ride off, Hajime calls out to them, asking if they've forgotten their little promise. He reminds them of their plan to check out the specialty MTG store over in Tominari on Saturday. His friends pause, the memory slowly dawning on them as Hajime complains about their forgetfulness. To Hajime's shock, Kurushima apologizes and says he can't go because he has a date. The revelation stuns Hajime, who can't believe his friend has a girlfriend. His other friends also back out, complaining that Tominari is an hour away by bike. As they ride off, telling him to buy them some old booster packs if he finds any, Hajime fumes, shouting that there's no way he'd do that for these insensitive louts. Now abandoned by his friends, Hajime pedals on alone, muttering about how they can't be believed and vowing that they'll face the consequences at school next week. As he rides past rows of shops, his thoughts drift to the infamous Nostradamus prophecy. On the 7th month of the year 1999, from the sky will come a great king of terror. It's a prophecy he's heard on TV since he was a kid. If it's true, the world will end before he ever reaches adulthood, perhaps through an Armageddon or a pestilence, just like in his card games. Looking out over the city lights, he quickly dismisses the prophecy as a cult mumbo-jumbo. Still, a quiet part of him wonders, if mankind really was destroyed, what would he be doing? The scene shifts to that fateful Saturday. Hajime clicks on his Sony mini-disc player, preparing for his solo journey. Dressed in his weekend attire, a plaid shirt, cap, and a Fatboy Messenger bag, he puts on his headphones, blocking out the sound of a nearby school band as he sets off on his bike. Pedaling furiously across a bridge, he sings aloud the opening theme of his favorite video game, Sakura Wars, running forth at light speed. After a long ride, he finally arrives at a building with a simple sign, Jun Kissa Shibuyama, a classic-style coffee shop. He checks a map he printed from his brother's computer. This is supposed to be the place, but he's confused by its ordinary cafe appearance. He hesitates outside. A sign confirms they handle trading cards, but it still just looks like an old cafe. Deciding there's nothing else for it, he resolves the enigma for the ages and heads inside. He steps through the door and is taken aback. The cafe is bustling with customers, far from the quiet coffee shop he expected. His jaw drops. They're all adults, and to his utter astonishment, every single person in the cafe is playing Magic: The Gathering. The cafe has a cozy, retro vibe, with an old Famicom console hooked up to a TV and shelves lined with VHS tapes. An older man leisurely eats while reading a magazine. Hajime timidly approaches the man behind the counter, who is busy painting a miniature figure, and explains that he saw an advertisement for the place in an RPG magazine. The laid-back owner welcomes him, offering coffee or curry, and directing him to the display case for cards. Hajime is still trying to process the strange, free and easy atmosphere of the place. He turns to the showcase and his eyes go wide. The shop has singles from Ice Age and Alliances, old English-only sets he never thought he'd see. He then recoils in shock at the high price of a cursed scroll card, regretting a past trade with Kurushima. His amazement turns to awe as he spots the holy grail of Magic cards, the legendary Power 9. They're displayed prominently, marked as not for sale, their power almost radiating from the case. Panting with excitement, Hajime realizes this place is an absolute gold mine. The sheer shock causes him to let out an audible whoa, catching the attention of some nearby players. His attention is drawn to a table where other players are buzzing. They talk of a legendary winning streak. Someone has just won against 10 people straight. Hajime looks over, wondering what kind of monster could pull that off. The undefeated player, holding a deck of cards and a bottle of peach water, coolly looks up from her victory and asks, "Any other challengers?" Hajime's world comes to a screeching halt. It's Saitari. He's completely stunned to find her here, looking like a totally different person from the girl at school. Her clothes, her confident atmosphere, everything is different. He can only think, what's she doing here? Looking at her now, he wonders if she's actually pretty grown-up. The other players seem to agree, with one telling his friend not to bother challenging Emi-chan, as getting pummeled by her is a foregone conclusion. Saitari scans the room with a confident smile, asking if there are no challengers left. At that moment, Hajime steps forward, raising his hand and masking his shock with a cool demeanor. "If you'd be so kind," he says, "might I be your next challenger?" He sits down at the table. Saitari notes that she hasn't had the pleasure of meeting him. Deciding to create a persona, Hajime declares his age will remain confidential and, mustering the lowest voice he can, introduces himself by the codename Cloud. Playing along, Saitari greets him as Cloud-san. The onlookers murmur that he's just a middle schooler. But in Hajime's mind, this is it, his grand chance to pay her back for everything, a classic Chinibu moment. The stage is set for the duel. It's a best-of-3 match, Game 1. Cloud, with 20 life points, faces off against Emi, also at 20 life points. Saitari starts the game, playing a plains and summoning a nomad's encore. Hajime analyzes her move, correctly deducing that she's playing a mono-white weenie deck, a fast-paced strategy similar to his own. In that case, Hajime knows what he must do. On his turn, he immediately plays Dark Ritual, a powerful spell that sacrifices card advantage for a burst of black mana. With the extra mana, he summons a Dothy Slayer and enchants it with Unholy Strength. He knows he just needs a faster start than her. The explosive first-turn play impresses both Saitari and the onlookers. Hajime presses his advantage, relentlessly attacking with his Dothy creatures. He then plays an instant, Terror, to destroy her blocking Knight of Dawn, dropping her life points to 10. The crowd notes that while both decks have good tempo, Hajime is using removal spells to create a sheer numbers advantage that Emi-chan can't keep up with. Hajime smirks, taunting, "What's the matter, honor student? Is that all you've got?" With a demonic grin, Hajime declares it's time to finish her. For a fleeting moment, Saitari seems to recognize the strategy, wondering if she's seen this deck somewhere before. His final attack lands, reducing her life points to 0. Hajime wins the first game. The crowd is in disbelief. "Holy moly! He won!" they exclaim, noting this might be the first time Emi-chan has ever been defeated. Hajime gloats, making a Final Fantasy VII reference about the tactics of a first-class soldier. He smugly asks what she'll do now, questioning if she'll use her sideboard, a set of cards players can swap in between games. Hajime is stunned when Saitari calmly replies, "Yeah." Unfazed by her loss, she states confidently, "I have a handle on your deck. Shall we go on to Game 2? Since she lost the previous game, Saitari has the right to choose who goes first in Game 2. She decides to play first again, simply laying down a plains and passing her turn. Hajime isn't holding back. He declares his intention to go just as explosively fast as before, once again using a dark ritual to power out a massive turn 1 creature, the Hidden Horror. The board presence escalates. Hajime summons a Knight of Stromgold, while Saitari plays a creature of her own, the Soltari Monk. The onlookers are on the edge of their seats, wondering if this newcomer can really go the distance and cause a regime change in the shop. Hajime, feeling the pressure, thinks to himself, "I can win. This is a match I can win." Meanwhile, the shop owner and another regular are completely oblivious to the tense match, having a casual chat about their favorite voice actresses in the anime cyber team in Akihabara. Their attention shifts back to the game. The owner smirks knowingly. "That kid's certainly playing his heart out," he says, "but White's got that card in its arsenal, so." Saitari plays the card the owner predicted, Light of Day. It's an enchantment that prevents black creatures from attacking or blocking. A memory flashes in Hajime's mind of his friend warning him about this exact counter, and he grits his teeth as the ugly truth rears its head. With his strategy completely shut down, Hajime stares at his useless lands, thinking he just needs to hold out a few more turns. But then he glances at Sawatari's hand, and a sense of dread washes over him. Saotari taps 3 mana to enchant her White Knight with Imperial Armor, an enchantment that gets stronger based on the number of cards in her hand. Hajime sweats, realizing with horror just how many cards she's been holding back. The empowered White Knight attacks for a massive 6 damage, dropping Hajime's life to a precarious 6. He can't believe it. She waited for the perfect moment to strike with no risk. The crowd is stunned as Emi-chan turns the tables in a single swing. Saotari looks at him with a smug, cutting smile. Don't tell me this is the end? Guess you're not really a first-class soldier after all. Hajime slumps in his seat, utterly defeated. The other players know he has no chance of winning now. Despair washes over Hajime as he flashes back to his rivalry with Saotari. Am I really going to lose, he thinks. Not only academically, but at magic too? Panicked and refusing to accept defeat, Hajime shouts, "No, I won't allow it." He lunges for his die to track his life total, but fumbles, sending it tumbling to the floor. As he scrambles for it, Saotari also reaches down. In the scramble to pick up the fallen die, his hand lands directly on top of hers. Time seems to stop. They both freeze, kneeling on the floor, suddenly caught in a moment of unexpected and intense physical contact. A close-up shows his hand completely covering hers. Saotari is frozen, her face flushed a deep red, utterly flustered by the unexpected physical contact. She violently snatches her hand back and wordlessly storms off. Hajime, still on the floor, can only call out her name in confusion as she rushes past him. The other players are baffled by her sudden departure. Hajime tries to stop her, shouting that she forgot her deck, but she's already out the door, blowing out of the cafe like a hurricane. Left in stunned silence, Hajime feels his heart pounding in his chest. He looks down at his hand, the one that touched hers, and realizes it still feels hot. As he clutches his shirt, a loud pounding rattling his chest, his thoughts return to the prophecy. Saotari's hurried footsteps echo in his mind as he wonders, when the world meets its end, where will I be, and what will I be doing? The rivalry has suddenly become something more. He wonders who he will spend that final day with, while Saotari panics, repeating, "He saw me." In May of 1998, with the new millennium approaching, Hajime still didn't know the answers to these new, burning questions. The story flashes back to elementary school, the day the fateful bond between Kinu Hajime and his rival was forged. During a school assembly, a transfer student named Saotari is called to the stage to receive the Best Efforts Prize for getting a perfect score in every subject. In the audience, a young Kinu Hajime looks on in utter disbelief. Kinu is stunned. He thought the Best Efforts Prize was his for the taking, but it went to somebody else instead. It was a harsh realization that it's a wide, wide world out there. Beside him, a classmate smiles, clearly impressed with Saotari's achievement. After the assembly, Kinu confronts the brilliant new girl. "Hey you! You're really smart," he exclaims. He then boldly introduces himself. "My name's Kinu Hajime. They call me a prodigy, and I'm gonna accept you as my rival." With a fiercely determined look, Kinu extends his hand for a handshake, shouting, "Nice to meet ya." Saotari, however, simply stares down at his hand with a blank, unimpressed expression. Saotari coolly dismisses him. "Your rival? How old are you? You can forget that childish nonsense. I have no interest in it." She turns to leave, leaving Kinu stunned with his hand still outstretched. As she walks away, her words "no interest in it" echo in Kinu's mind. He clenches his fist in fury. It was at that moment he swore to himself he would never forget her name, Saotari Emi. The scene jumps forward to the second grade of what appears to be high school, in 1998. Students are crowded around a bulletin board showing the midterm exam results. Kinu had sworn to himself that he would never lose to her again. But his vow wasn't enough. The results are posted. Saotari Emi is in first place, and Kinu Hajime is second. Her friends praise her, noting she came in first for last year's nationwide mock exam too, but she just laughs it off modestly. Meanwhile, Kinu's friends tease him about his repeated losses. "Damn, Hajime, you were so close," one says laughing. "Saotari-san beat you out in the smarts department." Kinu seethes with comical rage, clutching a trading card in his hand. A title page for Chapter 12, Part 2 of the manga, titled Our Saga. It features Saotari Emi in the foreground and Kinu Hajime in the background, walking through what looks like a record or game shop, evoking a strong 90s-era nostalgia with mini CDs lining the shelves. Back in the school hallway, a group of students turns as someone shouts, "Yo, Saatari!" It's Kanu, storming down the hall. He yells at Saatari, telling her not to get cocky. He claims his grades only slipped because his attention was demanded by a mission named Zenigers. Saatari's friends just find him creepy. Saatari dryly asks if he's come to make excuses, mockingly saying it's okay for him to be in second place forever. Kanu, annoyed, retorts that he's come to return something she forgot. He holds out a small box, a deck box for a card game. "Look, it's right here. You left it at that shop." Saatari's eyes widen in shock and panic. Kanu lets out a confused, "Huh?" as Saatari suddenly grabs his arm with both hands, a look of desperation on her face. Blushing furiously, Saatari drags him away. "Not here. Let's talk someplace else, okay?" she insists, while a flustered Kanu can only agree. Once they're alone, she demands to know what he was trying to pull. She angrily scolds him, not for revealing her secret, but for his carelessness. "Didn't I tell you? You can't bring items that are unrelated to studying to school. You should have at least put it in a bag." He realizes she's talking about something else entirely. Saatari anxiously asks if he told anybody she was at the card store. Kanu, meanwhile, is more concerned with the contents of the box. He counts his cards, lets out a sigh of relief that they're all there, and simply answers, "No." Saatari's demeanor turns threatening. "Because if you do, you're dead," she declares. Kanu is taken aback by her intensity, asking what possible reason she could have to hide her hobby. "Listen here," she says sternly, "I have a little something called status. I'm not like you and your friends, who do nothing but play games at school all day." She runs off, shouting, "Like I'll ever tell you." Kanu yells after her, "Then why do you play magic to begin with?" Kanu reflects on the situation, thinking, "What the hell, man?" The scene shows Saatari chatting happily with another person at the card shop. He had thought that, because of their shared interest, she might be someone he could actually talk to. Back in the present of the flashback, Kanu carries a large stack of papers through the school, wondering what really makes him and Saatari so different. Just then, he overhears some students talking about her. He listens as two girls gossip. "Yeah, I heard all about it. She got first place in her grade yet again, so." The Board of Education sent the school a request for an interview with her, right? The girls continue to fawn over Saatari, remarking on how pretty she is and how it feels like they live on different planets. Overhearing their conversation, Kanu looks on with a pensive expression, the gap between him and her feeling wider than ever. Just then, his friends walk up behind him. Sensing his frustration, one of them casually asks, "You want to know how you and Saatari-san are different?" Kanu's friend, Kurushima, finishes his thought on the difference between Kanu and Saatari. "I guess it's how your brains are wired." As Kanu looks out the classroom window at Saatari, he mutters, "God damn it, Kuruma. Whose side are you on, anyway?" Later, during P class, Kurushima continues to tease him. "I'm kidding, man, I'm kidding. I gotta say, it's not often I see you fretting over Saori-san." Kanu, annoyed, retorts, I'm not fretting over her." Kanu muses that since they've never been in the same class, he feels like he knows her and doesn't know her at the same time. He wonders to himself if she has any hobbies like watching anime or playing games. He imagines her world as something completely different from his own, a more serious, adult place, perhaps an office environment. He concludes with a sigh, "I'm guessing not." Even his teacher doesn't know much about her, having only heard that Saatari was raised in a really strict home. This is contrasted with an image of Saatari smiling cheerfully and politely with a classmate. Kanu sits with his magic cards and a box of fried chicken, staring blankly. He wonders if the prim and proper life everyone imagines for Saatari is actually fun for her. His friend can only reply, "Beats me, dude." While hanging out at an arcade, Kurushima confidently states that Saatari isn't the type to stop by a game arcade on her way home from school, and that she'd definitely never spend money on junk food. Kurushima remarks that he has a feeling all it would take is some inciting incident for the two of them to get along. Kanu, busy playing a shooting game, scoffs at the idea. "Me? Get along with Miss Honor Student? No way in hell. If the great king of terror comes, I'd like him to make her his first target of destruction." Kurushima presses on, pointing out that while their upbringings are different, they're both great at studying and have been competing since elementary school. "So wouldn't you say," he concludes, "you 2V got a whole lot in common?" Holding his magic cards, Kanu is struck by the thought. A spark of realization hits Kanu. A small smile plays on his lips as he says, Thank you, Kurushima. You've helped me see the light. Misunderstanding, Kurushima asks. Ah, so you're giving up? No, let's play another game. Kanu declares with renewed vigor. I'm going to be keeping you here until I've come up with a perfect strategy against Mono White. Just as the school bell rings, Satori is seen waving goodbye to her friends from the athletics club. Kanu purposefully stands in the middle of the crowded school gate, blocking Satori's path. She looks at him, slightly annoyed, and says, Could you move? You're blocking my way. Satori, I challenge you to a duel, he proclaims. She smirks. A duel? If you mean the midterms, I believe I already schooled you. He clarifies, proposing they continue their magic, the gathering game, picking up where they left off, and finish the match next Saturday. Satori dismisses him with a wave of her hand. Don't be stupid. What would be in it for me? Kanu grins slyly, playing his trump card. If you win, then I'll do anything you ask. The offer piques her interest. Satori stops walking and a sharp, mischievous smile spreads across her face. She turns to him and declares, You're on, before walking away. The scene shifts to the local card shop on the day of the duel. The place is packed with fellow gamers. Kanu arrives, only to find Satori already waiting for him at a table, looking completely at ease. Word of the rematch has spread through the shop. One of the regulars exclaims, Emi-chan and the kid from the other day are going to have a rematch. The friendly banter continues. One man asks another, Tori-chan, if he bought a Polaroid camera. The friend warns him against taking pictures of schoolgirl uniforms. But Tori-chan retorts that's rich coming from a guy in his 30s who paints magical girl figurines. The duel is set, Hajime versus Emi, both with 20 life points. Satori looks at him with a confident smirk. I hope you won't scream this time. Kanu grins back. I'll show what I can do at 100% power. Since Hajime lost their last game, he gets to go first this time. He makes his opening move with determination. I play a swamp and tap it. Then I summon Blood Pet. Your go. Satori calmly plays a plains and ends her turn. She silently notes that Kanu seems to be playing differently from before. On his turn, Kanu plays another swamp and attacks with his Blood Pet. Satori summons a White Knight, a creature with protection from black, making it immune to Kanu's Blood Pet. But Kanu has a plan. Get that thing out of my sight. Diabolic Edict, he yells, playing a spell that forces her to sacrifice the knight immediately. Now it's Kanu's turn again. He makes a dramatic move, playing a powerful black enchantment called Dread of Night, which weakens all of Satori's white creatures. The onlookers realize Kanu has abandoned a simple racing strategy and is now focused on specifically countering Satori's mono-white deck with Dread of Night. Satori herself analyzes the move, noting his more reactive playstyle. She considers his strategy. Is he playing far more reactively, or does he have some kind of secret weapon up his sleeve? A confident smirk spreads across Satori's face. Things have gotten interesting, she thinks. I'm game. Believing she's identified his primary threat, she confidently plays the perfect counter from her hand, casting Disenchant to immediately destroy his enchantment. Kanu lets out a triumphant laugh. Ha, you used it. I was waiting for that. He reveals that her casting Disenchant was all part of his plan. With her Disenchant now gone, Kanu plays his real threat, another enchantment card. Enjoy your gloom, he yells with manic glee. The onlookers are stunned. Gloom. That's the card that makes white spells more expensive, one exclaims. They realize Kanu baited her into wasting her enchantment removal on a lesser threat. Satori now sees his true strategy. The reason he lost last time was because of her powerful enchantments, so he planned this all along. Kanu explains his plan to prevent her from using her powerful cards. I pay 3 black mana to play Stupor, he declares, casting a spell that will force her to discard 2 cards from her hand. With a pained TCH, Satori is forced to discard 2 cards, including a powerful Sarah Angel, a key creature in her deck. The regulars watching the game are impressed. Would you look at that? Spectacles over there is fighting the good fight. Another speculates on the outcome. I can't predict how it'll play out. Will the kid chip away at all of her life, or will Emi-chan seal his ability to do so before he can? However, a more experienced player offers a different take. No, the way I see it, that kid's a step behind. At that moment, Satori begins to tap 7 of her Plains land cards. With the 7 mana, she plays Light of Day, an enchantment that prevents all black creatures from attacking or blocking. Damn. Kanu groans, his primary strategy now completely shut down. Sawatari's life is at 10. Sawatari presses her advantage, casting Crusade. Another enchantment that gives all her white creatures a +1/+1 power and toughness boost. She attacks with her now buffed White Knight and Order of the White Shield. Kanu cries out as his life points drop to a critical 3. The onlookers see the game turning against him, murmuring that without a way to deal damage, there's no hope left. Despite his grim situation, Kanu remains defiant. Leaning over his cards, he thinks to himself with gritted teeth, "You can go ahead and tell me that, for Pete's sake." He reflects on his long-standing rivalry with Sawatari, from their first encounter in elementary school to the present day. During all of this time, but not once, have I ever thought to myself that I ought to resign myself to losing to her. His eyes burn with an intense, unwavering will to win. Suddenly, an idea strikes him. He remembers that black decks have an out, a source of damage besides creature combat. He taps all his swamps, sacrifices his blood pet, and plays Dark Ritual, generating a massive 10 mana for a final, desperate move. With a triumphant roar, Kanu unleashes his ultimate spell. Drain Life. In a single shocking move, he deals 8 damage to Sawatari and gains 8 life, completely turning the tables. Her life plummets to 2, while his recovers to 11. Kanu flashes a smug grin, holding another Drain Life card in his hand. "See, Sawatari? All I need is to hit you with another. Once I play the other Drain Life in my hand, it's all over. And the match goes to me," he thinks, already tasting victory. But Sawatari looks at him with a calm, knowing smile. "You let your guard down at the end," she says, revealing a card from her hand. She plays her trump card, a world-shattering spell that brings the game to a grinding halt. Armageddon. Kanu watches in horror as Armageddon resolves, destroying all land cards on the field. It can't be. My lands. All the mana he had accumulated to cast his final Drain Life vanishes in an instant. And since his creatures can't block, he has no defense. The grim reality sets in. After she attacks this turn, it will only take one more attack to defeat him. He looks at his hand, realizing that there isn't a single card in his entire deck that can save him now. Utterly defeated, Kanu slumps forward onto the table. I concede." The onlookers are stunned into silence as Sawatari looks on, the victor. The crowd erupts into applause for the incredible game. Kanu is crushed by the reality of his loss. "In the end, no matter what I do, I guess I just can't beat her," he thinks as Sawatari simply closes her eyes, basking in the victory. Kanu resigns himself to his fate, thinking, "Starting tomorrow, I resign myself to a humble life as one of the masses who make up society." As he wallows in his defeat, Sawatari walks over to his side of the table and calls his name. She extends her hand, offering a handshake. "Let's shake. It was a great match." The gesture mirrors their first encounter in elementary school, bringing their rivalry full circle. Kanu looks up, surprised by her sportsmanship. A deep blush spreads across Kanu's face as the weight of his promise crashes down on him. "Ah, right. I remember now." He had promised to do anything she asked if he lost. The crowd continues to applaud, oblivious to the new stakes between the two rivals. He takes her hand, a blush still on his face. In that moment, he thinks to himself that even though he wanted to beat her, more than anything, he really just wanted to be friends with her. So, what was the grand request for his servitude? As it turns out, she just wanted a ride home. The scene shifts to Kanu pedaling his bicycle across a bridge, with Sawatari riding on the back. Sawatari complains that the sun will go down if they don't hurry. Kanu retorts that he'd be going faster if he wasn't carrying her. She explains that the next bus isn't for another hour. "Hey," Sawatari says, "it's been bothering me since elementary school. Could you stop being so curt with me? It's frankly infuriating." She pinches his cheek hard, making him yelp in pain. Panting from the effort, Kanu calls for a timeout, saying he needs a breather. He stops the bike on the bridge, and Sawatari tells him to look over at the view. They both look out at the river as the sun sets behind a railway bridge. "Whoa!" Kanu exclaims. "What an incredible sunset. It reminds me of Fireball," he says, comparing the beautiful view to the art on a Magic, the Gathering card. "Hey," Sawatari begins. "Do you believe in Nostradamus' prophecy?" Kanu is taken aback. "Oh, you mean the one where the great king of terror is supposed to descend from the sky next year? Yeah, what about it?" She looks out at the fiery sunset and wonders aloud. I wonder whether the coming of the great king of terror will look something like this? Canoe is completely dismissive. Are you serious, woman? You believe in that baloney. Canoe scoffs at the idea. He has more important things to worry about, like the Exodus Magic expansion coming out next month and the release of Final Fantasy VIII next year. As if I'd ever let humanity be destroyed, he declares, thinking to himself that she must be crazy. Saitari bursts into laughter. Ahahaha. All you care about is magic and video games, she teases. Canoe retorts that the world is full of things she wouldn't know about. Saitari just gives him a knowing smile. She giggles, then reminds him not to be rude. Her expression then becomes more serious. I just remembered. You haven't forgotten what you promised, right? She asks. Canoe is confused until she reminds him. If I win, you do whatever I ask. Remember? He puffs out his chest, declaring, Ah, well, I did say I would. And a man never goes back on his word. Good. Saitari says, her face cast in shadow, a slight blush on her cheeks. Because I do have something to ask of you, Canoe-kun. She turns to him, leaning against the railing with a gentle, almost shy smile. She looks at him and makes her request. Could you be with me when the world ends? The question hangs in the air between them. Saitari looks at him with a surprisingly sincere expression, while Canoe is completely speechless, his face flushing red. Saitari watches his flustered reaction for a moment before she can no longer hold back her amusement, letting out a small puff. She bursts out laughing. Psych! It was a joke. What are you blushing over? An embarrassed Canoe shouts, I am not be blushing. I'm just taken by the sunset, as he scrambles back to his bike. After his outburst, Saitari calmly says, Right then, back on the bike if you will, and they continue their journey home. Suddenly, she seems to be in a panic. Hey, we're running late. Could you pick it up a bit? I want to be back home by 6. Canoe is annoyed, asking, What did you say? Canoe can't believe her sudden urgency. What are you talking about? What, the he? You got some kind of super important errand to run or something. Saitari insists. I said I want to be back by 6. You'd better get me there by then, and not a second later. Finally, with a look of desperate urgency, she blurts out her super important errand. I want to watch YT Untroubled Space Tours. Canoe is stunned silent, then tries to stifle a laugh. Canoe bursts out laughing, much to Saitari's annoyance. What? What's wrong with that? She demands. Canoe just smiles, thinking to himself, It's just like Kurushima said. Saitari looks at him, confused. What are you? Nothing, he says with a wide grin. I'll send you flying. He pedals with renewed vigor, a new understanding and connection forged between the two rivals. The chapter comes to a close as they ride off across the bridge. The final panel reads, There's a year and change left until the end of the world. This is where our saga begins. The year is 1998. The story flashes through major world events, starting with February, when the Winter Olympics were held in Nagano. This is followed by March, where the movie Titanic, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, swept the Academy Awards, winning a record 11 Oscars. The montage of 1998 continues. In April, the popular rock band Glay simultaneously released 2 hit singles, Yuwaku and Soul Love. Then, in May, the international political climate grew tense as India and Pakistan conducted a series of nuclear tests. The timeline finally settles in June of 1998. The scene shifts to a high school at the end of the day, with students leaving the premises. One of the teachers shouts at the students to stop running in the hallways. The teacher spots the long-haired student, Saitari, and wishes her a safe trip home. She politely thanks her sensei and begins to walk away, her long black hair flowing behind her. As Saitari walks with a determined look, a group of boys behind her are excitedly discussing the previous day's World Cup match, praising the player Batistuta. Inside the classroom, 2 of his friends call out to a boy with glasses named Hajime, asking if he wants to join them at the arcade on the way home. Hajime looks flustered, as if caught off guard. With an exaggerated and apologetic expression, Hajime tells his friends that he can't go because he has other plans for the day. His friends watch him leave, completely surprised by his refusal. His friends find it strange, as they were sure Hajime would be free. They muse that something important must be happening today as they watch Hajime run off into the distance. The scene shifts to a quiet, seemingly deserted location. the Okina Shrine, located in the town of Kamikawa. A voice is heard shouting for someone. Hajime arrives, panting and holding a paper bag, announcing that he's got the goods. He's met by Sayatari, who is waiting for him. She scolds him for being late, saying she was anxious that someone might spot her waiting there. Hajime dismisses her worries, assuring her that nobody would come to such a secluded place. Full of excitement, he declares that it's time to crack open some packs. It is revealed that the source of their excitement is the then-latest expansion of the trading card game Magic, The Gathering. The long-awaited set, Exodus, had just hit store shelves in June of 1998. The Exodus expansion was a small set that marked the end of the Tempest block in the game's storyline. Its theme depicts the dramatic escape of the skyship, Weatherlight from Wrath, an artificial plane ruled by the villain Valrath. Hajime eagerly opens a pack, deeply inhaling the smell of fresh ink from the new cards. He proclaims that this is the true thrill of a new pack day, while Sayatari looks on, sharing in his excitement. Sayatari comments that the coloring of the expansion symbol now indicates the card's rarity, which is a new feature. She says it's less elegant, but makes them easier to identify. She then asks Hajime if there's a particular card he's hoping to find. With a mad glint in his eye, Hajime reveals the card he's after: Hatred. He believes the powerful instant card will be an incredible new weapon for his mono-black deck. Sayatari dismisses his choice, calling the card's art gross and his taste horrible. Hajime retorts that someone who plays with white cards would never understand how a card like Hatred excites the spirit. When asked what card she's looking for, Sayatari reveals she wants Cataclysm. She explains that it would synergize perfectly with her armor skin deck. Hajime jokingly fires back that she's the one with horrible taste, as she loves sweepers, or cards that clear the board. The time has come. They've both reached their last packs. As they open them, they both silently chant for the cards they desperately want: Hatred for Hajime and Cataclysm for Sayatari. Sayatari gasps in shock and delight. She managed to pull the exact card she wanted, the rare white sorcery, Cataclysm. Hajime is devastated by her luck. Sayatari, blushing with excitement, immediately asks if he'd be willing to trade it for his City of Traders. Hajime vehemently refuses, claiming the market values don't match. An aside explains that City of Traders would later become the most valuable card in the set, though no one knew it at the time. Hajime is still muttering about the drawbacks of his City of Traders card when Sayatari suddenly shushes him, putting a finger to his lips. They've been interrupted by the sound of the shrine's prayer bell ringing. Startled, Sayatari covers Hajime's mouth as they see two boys from their school praying at the shrine. One prays to date a girl named Mikitani, while the other prays for the recently deceased rock star, Hyde, to come back to life. While hiding, Hajime's attention drifts to another group of students nearby. He overhears them sharing a rumor that confessing to a girl where white hydrangeas bloom, a symbol of undying love, guarantees she'll accept. The romantic notion seems to strike a chord with him, leaving him lost in thought. Finally, Sayatari peeks out and asks if they're gone. Once the coast is clear, she falls back in sheer relief, exasperated by the close call. She questions why Hajime even bothers playing Magic if he's not going to be more careful about hiding it, clearly rattled by the fear of their secret hobby being exposed. Hajime complains that he's been wanting to know what she's hinting at. But Sayatari playfully teases him, sticking out her tongue and declaring with a sing-song tada that she's not telling him, referencing a popular snack food commercial. Hajime yells in frustration that he doesn't want to hear her silly jingle. He sighs, looking at his disappointing hand of cards, lamenting that almost all of his good pulls have been low-cost creatures. Hajime groans that 500 yen per pack is a rough price for a middle schooler. Sayatari asks if he doesn't save up his New Year's gift money. He admits that while he wants to enjoy cracking new packs, he can't focus solely on Magic, as he still has a video game, Yaradora Volume 1, that he needs to finish. Seeing his dilemma, Sayatari's expression changes to a sly smile. She leans in and tells him that in that case, she has something that he might want to know. The scene shifts to the following Saturday, at a local game store called Shibafuya. Inside, several players are already deep in discussion about the new cards, theorizing about potential combos with cards like Oath of Druids and Pandemonium. The shop is buzzing with activity. Players discuss the game's lore, noting that the famous character Urza is featured on the art for Mind Over Matter, and speculating he might be the protagonist of the next block. Amidst the crowd, Hajime and Sayatari have also arrived. Hajime observes the lively crowd, noting that everyone gets especially excited right after a new set is released. Sayatari, looking through a magazine, agrees, comparing it to a party that comes around once every 4 months. The store owner, a large man with an apron, bursts out and apologizes for the wait. With a booming voice, he announces that everything is ready and it's time to get things rolling. The event is announced, an Exodus sealed tournament. Players will be using booster packs from the new set to build their decks and compete. Sealed is a popular limited format. Unlike Constructed, where players bring pre-made decks, in Sealed, players must build a deck of at least 40 cards using only the cards pulled from the starter deck and booster packs they are given. Hajime schemes, thinking about his strategy. He knows this format prizes a player's skill at deck construction and card evaluation, plus a bit of luck. With his playable cards spread thin, he decides to make black his base color. His eyes are on the prize. The champion will be awarded 5 packs of Exodus. Hajime's focus sharpens as he sees Sayatari calmly organizing her cards, ready to play. A bead of sweat drips down his face as he resolves that today is the day he will finally defeat her. Round 1 begins. Hajime's first opponent is a cocky, long-haired man. He smirks, seeing that he's been paired against the kid with the glasses first, and declares it's his lucky day. Hajime tries to stand his ground, reminding the man not to look down on him, boasting that he's the one who drove the shop's undefeated legend to the brink. Confident, he declares he'll show his opponent what he's made of. The man just smiles, agrees to a clean match, and states that he'll go first. Despite Hajime's confidence, his opponent quickly establishes a dominant board state with a creature card, Mocker, and 6 Thopter tokens, represented by glass beads. His opponent, Tori Yuji, declares an attack with his flying creatures for the win. Hajime is overwhelmed and cries out as he's defeated. The final score is Kanu Hajime 0, Tori Yuji 2. Tori Yuji pats Hajime on the back, thanking him for the easy win. Hajime is in utter shock, unable to believe he lost to someone besides Sayatari. He realizes he completely underestimated his opponent and forces himself to focus on round 2. As the next round starts, Hajime is faced with his new opponent, an older man in a cap, whose face is cast in an intimidating shadow. Hajime is immediately put on edge. The man's intimidating aura vanishes as he introduces himself. He confirms Hajime's name, Kanukuen, and says that with his menacing face, he looks like a goblin. He then cheerfully reveals that Hajime's previous match against Emi-chan really moved him and tells Hajime to call him Goba-san. Hajime is taken aback, realizing the man is actually quite nice. Despite the friendly introduction, the result is the same. Goba-san plays the card Sonic Burst, dealing 4 direct damage to Hajime's face and winning the match. Hajime screams as he loses yet again, 0-2 against Akoi Guichi, aka Goba-san. Hajime is completely dejected. After losing 2 matches in a row, he knows he has no chance of becoming the champion anymore. With his grand ambition crushed, he resolves to at least try and win a single game. In round 3, Hajime faces yet another opponent, a man with a ponytail and glasses. He plays the card Overrun, a powerful spell that will give all of his creatures +3/+3 and the trample ability for the turn. The man declares an attack with his entire board of now gigantic creatures. Faced with this overwhelming assault, all Hajime can do is laugh maniacally in utter despair. Hajime is shown lying flat on the floor, completely defeated. He lost his 3rd match 0-2, this time to the store runner, Oagusa Chikara. He closes his eyes in disbelief, the self-proclaimed strongest duelist of Tokawaji Junior High, having lost every single game without a single victory. His tournament has ended in utter failure. But as Hajime lies there in defeat, the tournament concludes. The store runner calls for a round of applause for the champion, who astonishingly won every single match, Emi-chan. Sayatari beams, thanking everyone as she holds up her prize and the Winds of Wrath card that secured her victory, a stark contrast to Hajime's devastating losses. Hajime stares at the final tournament rankings board. In first place, surrounded by hearts, is Emi. His opponents, the owner, Tori, and Goba-san, are ranked below her. He clenches his fists, finally understanding her true strength, but sees this defeat not as an end, but as the beginning of his inexorable conquest. His eyes burn with a new fire as he looks at the faces of the players who defeated him. He vows to himself that from this moment on, He will surpass everyone and climb his way to the top. His determined gaze lands on Saitari, who is still celebrating her victory with a bright, joyful smile. He promises himself that someday, he will be strong enough to face her as an equal. Later, as they walk home, Saitari teases Hajime, asking how many games he managed to win. Hajime, embarrassed and angry, rides his bike ahead and yells at her to leave him alone, blaming his losses on a bad pool of cards. Saitari catches up to him and starts lecturing him on strategy, asking if he even considers his mana curve when building a deck. She explains its basic knowledge to calculate the odds and allocate cards properly. Hajime flusters, pretending he knew that and just misheard her. Hajime is shocked that she thinks about such technical aspects of the game. As he's lost in thought, a drop of rain hits his nose. Saitari points out that it's starting to rain, and they should find cover. They find shelter from the sudden downpour in a nearby gazebo. As the rain falls around them, Saitari looks through her prize cards, noting that a Paladin and Vec will be a good addition to her collection. As Saitari busies herself with her cards, Hajime abruptly asks her if she has any friends at school she can talk to about magic. The question seems to catch her by surprise. Saitari quietly confesses that she keeps it a secret. She explains that if anyone at school found out she played a game like Magic, it would ruin the carefully constructed image of a perfect student she's maintained for years. Hajime finds her reasoning a bit strange. Hajime says he understands, and Saitari confirms that's her reason. They fall into a brief, quiet moment as the rain patters outside. Breaking the silence, Hajime leans back and says casually, "Personally, I like the current you better." The unexpected compliment leaves Saitari completely stunned, a deep blush spreading across her face. Hajime immediately realizes what he just said and panics, equally shocked at his own words. Hajime frantically tries to backtrack, waving his hands and insisting she not get the wrong idea. He clarifies that he just meant he likes her better as a person when she's her genuine, passionate self. Saitari, still flustered, mutters that she isn't either. Relieved the misunderstanding is cleared, Hajime pants to catch his breath. Saitari turns away, hiding a small, shy smile as she looks at her cards. She seems pleased by his clumsy honesty. After composing herself, Saitari turns back to Hajime with a playful smile and asks him if he wants to trade. With another dramatic ta-da, she presents him with the hatred card he wanted so badly from the start, offering to trade it for his cataclysm. She even offers to throw in his City of Traders card as well, making the deal even more favorable for him. She smiles, asking if that makes the trade value balanced now, referencing his earlier complaint. Hajime's face lights up with pure joy. He gives a thumbs up and exclaims with a huge grin, "You got it! Negotiation successful." As they sit together in the gazebo, Hajime reflects that it doesn't matter what kind of person Saitari is or what secrets she might be hiding. He honestly doesn't care. Saitari interrupts his thoughts, teasingly asking if he wants to play and add to his losing streak. While they play cards together in the rain, Hajime has a heartfelt internal monologue. He realizes that if they could be together like this every day, his life would be a lot more fun. The chapter closes on an image of white hydrangeas, the flower of undying love from the rumor Hajime overheard earlier. The narration states that in June of 1998, their saga had only just begun. A note teases that in the next issue, a fight erupts. The scene opens on the cover page for the previous chapter, Chapter 4, titled Our 10-Day War. It features Saitari Emi on a payphone, holding a small photo of Hajime Kanu. In the middle of a card game, Hajime Kanu makes a risky move. He taps his cards to add 5 black mana and pays 8 of his 9 life points as an additional cost. With a determined look, Hajime goes for the kill. He casts the spell Hatred, allowing his Carnophage creature to swing for a massive 10 damage. But his opponent Goba-san has a response. He casts Incinerate, dealing 3 direct damage to Hajime's face. Overwhelmed by the flames, Hajime's life total drops to 0. Defeated, Hajime lies on the floor as the final score shows, Hajime 0 to 2 Goba-san. Goba-san calmly remarks that toast is an accurate description of what just happened. Hajime mutters in frustration, "It happened twice. Twice in a row." Back at the table, their long-haired friend laughs, saying Hajime is weak as hell. Saitari Emi, sipping her drink, coolly states that she keeps telling him playing Hatred in a red heavy meta is just suicide. Sly is the deck to beat at the moment. Hajime examines his cards, finally understanding the concept of a sly deck. He realizes his creatures aren't big enough, and his opponents have too much burn damage for him to be reckless with his own life total. He thinks to himself about what a frustrating matchup it is. Emi leans over his shoulder, suggesting he add a second color to his deck for more versatility, reminding him of when he played a multicolored deck before. Their friends look on, with Goba-san noting that Hajime and Emi always go home together. Hajime looks confused by the sudden attention. With a sly grin, Goba-san gets straight to the point, asking the question on everyone's mind. You dating? Both Hajime and Emi are caught completely off guard. The question hits them like a lightning bolt. Both Hajime and Emi simultaneously blush and shout in utter shock and denial. They vehemently deny it. Emi claims her ideal man is like Jean Reno or Bruce Willis, not a kid like Hajime. He retorts that he's into the opposite of girls like her, preferring characters like Paffy from How Taike Reunite. The argument gets more heated. But they're chrome domes, the pair of them. Hajime yells. Emi shouts back. And yours are both just male fantasies, aren't they? The onlookers are stunned. Goba-san scratches his head, realizing he's poked a beehive. Emi, furious, tells Hajime to have fun going home alone. If I was going to be mistaken as somebody's girlfriend, she huffs, I'd hope it would be with a cute boy. Goba-san feels apologetic for starting the argument. Meanwhile, another regular suggests they should go mediate, but the bearded man seems unsure, as Hajime sits dejectedly at the table and Emi fumes with her arms crossed. The bearded man isn't concerned. He comments on the oddities of Hajime's taste in characters before confidently stating, "Don't worry, they'll patch things up in no time." 1 week later, the prediction has not come true. An awkward silence hangs between Hajime and Emi as they sit near each other, pointedly not speaking. Their friends notice that the two are still giving each other the silent treatment. The clock on the wall ticks away, highlighting the tense and prolonged standoff. Emi announces she's heading home early to catch the bus. Their long-haired friend waves goodbye, while Goba-san leans over to Hajime and whispers, "Take her home, why don't you?" Hajime suddenly snaps, shouting as if couldn't care less about her. His own outburst seems to startle him, causing him to drop the manga he was reading. With a wild look in his eyes, he races out and hops on his bike, pedaling furiously down the street as if driven by an intense beat. He catches up to Emi on an overpass. She gets on the back of his bike, and he thinks to himself that this is how he wants to express his passion. Hajime glances back with a deadpan expression, thinking this is fine, as he continues to pedal across the bridge. Despite the extra weight, he notes that it feels a lot easier to pedal now. Back in the classroom, still energized from his reconciliation with Emi, Hajime declares his intent to build a new deck and become the top duelist. As he strategizes, a classmate leans over, suggesting he should make his deck multicolor. "You'll want to go blue, my friend," he says, explaining that it opens up many new battle tactics. Hajime's imagination runs wild with the possibilities. The first thing that comes to mind is bouncing, a tactic that returns his opponent's permanents to their hand. The new strategic depth leaves him ecstatic, ready to explore this new path. Continuing the conversation from the previous night, Hajime excitedly describes using his old tactics, playing a dark banishing spell to destroy an annoying creature, which is then shown shattering. His friend, Kurushima, explains the real power of a blue deck. He talks about using countermagic to stop opponents' spells, and even locking them out of the game with obscene cards like Stasis and Propaganda, much to Hajime's surprise. The scene shifts to the classroom, where Hajime is taken aback to see a group of girls begging Satori Emi to let them copy her homework. Emi stands firm, telling them no, as it would defeat the whole point. Hajime complains to Kurushima about falling asleep watching TV, but Kurushima defends the show. Below them, Emi politely but firmly turns down her classmates' pleas for her homework. Later, by the pool, some girls from the girls' club are gossiping. They complain about the otaku from class 2, referring to Hajime, mentioning he's always loud and playing with cards, and that they would never want to be friends with his type. One of the girls asks Emi if she also thinks Kurushima is a good sport for hanging out with a pity case like Hajime. Emi looks surprised by the question and gives a vague answer, but her expression turns thoughtful as she looks down. After school, the bell rings and Hajime's friends call out to him from the staircase, asking him to go to the arcade to play against rival schools. Hajime turns them down, explaining that he has student council duties to attend to. His friends say goodbye as he heads off with a bulletin under his arm. Hajime hums to himself as he pins the student council bulletin to the school's notice board. He then notices a Board of Education bulletin, announcing Satori Emi as an exemplar for all students. He scoffs at the idea, sarcastically wondering if an exemplar should be riding on the back of people's bikes, a clear reference to their recent ride home. As he turns away, he overhears a group of girls complaining. They've gotten detention because, as one girl puts it, Sawadari-sen wouldn't let us copy her work. Hajime recognizes the girls from before. His face breaks into a sweat as he listens to one of them say that Emi makes her want to hurl. The girls continue their vicious gossip, belittling Emi's academic achievements by saying she's just playing the good girl. Hajime listens silently as one of them coldly remarks, "She's just a cow to me." One girl, Michi, questions why Emi is even at their school if she's so smart. The girls laugh, and Hajime thinks bitterly, "This is what you get for saying you want to be loved by all." Hajime's expression hardens. He flashes back to images of Emi's public recognition and their private interactions, contrasting her public persona with the cruel words he's overhearing. Unable to listen anymore, Hajime finally snaps. He shouts HEY and stands, ready to confront the three gossiping girls. He walks toward the startled girls, his face determined, and asks them directly, "What do you even know about her?" The girls recognize him as the otaku from Class 2. Hajime launches into a tirade, admitting that Emi is annoying, quick to make fun of people, and seems to think he's her chauffeur. But you know what? His voice rises as he fiercely declares, "She's still my friend." He points at them, telling them not to talk smack about someone they don't know, and that if they have a problem, they should say it to her face. As he's lecturing them on how lame it is to talk behind people's backs, one of the girls crumples up a flyer and throws it, hitting him directly in the face. The girls retaliate, shouting at him for sticking his head where it doesn't belong and making their friend, a girl named Sachi, cry. They start throwing all the flyers at him, screaming, "Why don't you kill yourself, otaku?" as he tries to shield himself. Down the hall, Satori Emi clutches her book, having seen the entire confrontation. As the girls continue their assault before running away, she lets out a quiet sigh. After the chaos, Hajime stands amidst the scattered flyers, annoyed at how late it's become. He looks up and is surprised to see Emi standing at the end of the schoolyard, who says to him, "You're late." Standing by the school gate with her hands on her hips, Emi looks at Hajime and tells him, "I wouldn't hate going home with you, you know?" The final scene shows the two of them back on Hajime's bike, with Emi riding on the back as they pedal through a quiet residential neighborhood. As they ride, Hajime asks if Emi is okay with riding double like this. She says she doesn't mind, as she's in the mood for it today, much to his surprise. Emi looks ahead and reflects, "I guess I'm the type that makes enemies easily, huh?" Hajime looks at her with a gentle smile. She explains that it's always been this way. The more she tries to act perfect, the worse things get. Hajime suggests she just act normal, but Emi confesses that she can't, because being perfect is the only way she's ever known how to be. Hajime is struck silent for a moment by her vulnerability, processing what she just revealed. After a pause, he makes a bold declaration. "In that case, I'll help you. I'll help you find a new way to be." Emi is visibly stunned and touched by his sincere and unexpected offer. Hajime looks ahead, his expression full of determination. A soft smile spreads across Emi's face. Their tender moment is suddenly interrupted when a cat darts across their path, causing Hajime to swerve and Emi to yelp in surprise and instinctively cling to him. The cat saunters away, but Hajime's heart is pounding in his chest from the sudden closeness with Emi, who is still holding on to him tightly. Trying to play it cool despite his blush, Hajime tells her that it's dangerous around here, so she should hold on nice and tight. Blushing, Emi quietly agrees and snuggles closer. As they continue their ride over a bridge, Emi's expression shifts from embarrassed to contemplative, her hair blowing in the wind. Emi breaks the silence, asking Hajime if he remembers their promise. He's confused, replying that he thought she was just joking about it. She stares ahead seriously and recites the prophecy. July 1999. The great king of terror will descend from the sky to bring the world to ruin. Humankind's last day on Earth. It's coming. Hajime tries to ground the conversation, mentioning their upcoming end-of-term exams. Emmy just laughs, saying she can't wait to see his mopey face after she beats him again, before adding cryptically, "Everything that hurts, my own weakness." She playfully tugs on his shirt, telling him that if the end of the world really does happen, all those weaknesses will be swept away. She then tells him to remember what she said, before he destroys humanity. They ride across the bridge, overlooking the vast cityscape under a setting sun, as she asks him to remember her words for when the world comes to an end. Sometime later, Hajime and Emmy, now in casual clothes, arrive back at the Shibuya card shop, greeting their friends who are gathered inside. Gobu-san expresses his relief that the two have made up. He explains that the group was just gathered around a map, looking up the DCI tournament center. Their friends explain their plan. They're going to take a trip to Tokyo during summer break to see if their decks can stand a chance at the tournament where the top players will be. Gobu-san then invites Hajime and Emmy to tag along. Hajime and Emmy look at each other, their eyes wide with excitement at the thought of Tokyo and facing top-tier players. They both shout in unison, "Totally." The chapter ends with a shot of the Shibuya Cafe and the declaration. They're off to Tokyo.